All right, today we are diving into the mind of David Hume, a philosopher who basically took a sledgehammer to some of the biggest ideas in Western thought. He dared to ask a question that, honestly, still shakes us up today.
I mean, really think about that. This is the wild question at the very heart of Hume's philosophy. He argued that our deepest beliefs about cause and effect, who we are, even the world outside our heads, they aren't built on solid, rational proof. Nope, he said they're based on something way more gut level, our feelings and our psychological habits.
And you know what's crazy? This massive shift in thinking happened fast. We're talking less than 60 years. Philosophy went from the super-confident certainty of John Locke to the radical, world-shaking skepticism of David Hume. It was a total revolution in how we even think about what it means to know something. So, to really get why Hume was such a big deal, we have to understand the world he was pushing back against. This was the Enlightenment, right? The Age of Reason. Everybody was incredibly optimistic about the power of the human mind. The thinking was, we could use logic to unlock pretty much any secret of the universe. And the guy leading the charge was John Locke. His view was that we could build this perfect, certain fortress of knowledge. The plan seemed simple enough. Use your senses to gather evidence, form these clear and distinct ideas, and then stack them up brick by logical brick until you understood everything.
And then along comes David Hume. He takes a look at this beautiful, confident building of knowledge, and he starts kicking the tires. He starts asking these really uncomfortable questions. He wasn't trying to build anything new. He wanted to inspect the very foundations that everyone else just assumed were solid.
And that difference in what they were trying to do? It's everything. You can think of Locke as the architect. He's trying to justify our knowledge, to prove it's built on solid ground. Hume? He's the building inspector. His job isn't to build or prove. His goal is just to describe what's actually there, and to see if the foundation is full of cracks. This right here is the game-changing shift. Hume basically said, hey everyone, instead of trying to prove our beliefs are true, why don't we just study our own minds? For him, philosophy becomes a kind of psychology, a deep dive into the actual mechanics of why we believe what we believe. So this shows you the brand new scorecard Hume brought to the table. For Locke, an idea was good if it was cognitively clear and distinct, if it made logical sense. Hume couldn't care less about that. For him, the test was all about feeling. He wanted to know about an idea's force and vivacity. How powerfully does it hit you? How real does it feel? Okay, so now let's get into the core mechanic of Hume's whole system. It's this idea of impressions being more important than ideas. This one little distinction is the engine that drives his entire way of thinking. Hume says that everything floating around in your mind is one of two things. First, you've got impressions. These are your direct, powerful, lively experiences of the world. The actual feeling of pain, the shock of a sudden loud noise. And then you have ideas, which are just faded copies, like a photocopy of those original impressions. Think about it this way. A bright flash of light right in your face. That's an impression. It's intense, it's forceful. Now the memory you have of that flash a few seconds later, that's the idea. It's just a faint copy, right? It doesn't have any of the original power. And here's the key takeaway. Hume argues that all of our complex thoughts, everything we think, ultimately comes from these raw initial impressions. Okay, so now for the fun part. We get to see how Hume uses this distinction as a weapon. He applies it like a kind of philosophical acid test to some of our most basic, cherished beliefs to see if they hold up. He asks this brutally simple question about all of philosophy. When we use these big, fancy words like causation or the self, are we actually talking about anything real, or are we just talking nonsense?
So here's how the test works. You take any philosophical concept you want, you break it down into its simplest parts, and then you ask the killer question. Can you trace this idea back to an original, forceful impression? Can you point to the real-world sensory experience that created it?
And his conclusion is just brutal. If you can't trace an idea back to a direct experience, Hume says that word is meaningless. It might sound really smart and profound, but if there's no impression behind it, it's just hot air. It's philosophical jargon that doesn't point to anything real. Let's try this out on cause and effect. Picture a game of pool. We see one ball hit another, and then the second ball moves. What do we actually see? Hume says all we see is two events that always happen one after the other. We believe there's some invisible force, some necessary connection linking them. But have you ever actually seen causation? No. You never see, hear, or feel the cause itself.
All you see is the sequence of events. So, if our belief in cause and effect isn't based on anything we can observe, where the heck does it come from? Hume's answer is that it's just a mental habit. After you see two things happen together again and again and again, your brain just develops this powerful feeling, this expectation that it'll happen next time. Our certainty isn't logical, it's purely psychological.
Okay, now we get to the really wild part. Hume turns this acid test on us. He targets one of the ideas we hold most dear, the belief that you have a single, stable, continuous self.
He says, look inside your own mind right now. Try to find you. You won't find a single thing. What you'll find is a constant parade of perceptions, thoughts, feelings, memories, sensations, all just flowing by, one after the other. He famously compares the mind to a theater, a stage where all these different perceptions pop in and out.
And this leads to his most shocking conclusion. We experience all the individual thoughts and feelings, that's the performance happening on the stage. But we never ever have an impression of the stage itself, the underlying I that's supposed to be watching the show. For Hume, there is no theater, there is only the performance. So, if we can't be certain about something as basic as cause and effect, or even our own self, where does that leave us? Are we just supposed to be paralyzed by doubt forever?
Not at all. For Hume, this skepticism isn't depressing, it's humbling. It teaches us that this idea of achieving absolute certainty through pure reason is a total fantasy. Our most important beliefs aren't products of logic, they're products of our human nature, our feelings, our habits. We're creatures of instinct way more than we are creatures of logic.
And this is what he calls his skeptical solution. It's brilliant. He's saying, sure, be a philosopher, think these deep thoughts, follow reason all the way to its scary conclusions in your study, but at the end of the day, you have to close the book, go out, and live your life. We have to trust our natural human instincts to get by. We just accept the limits of our reason and get on with the business of being human.
And so that leaves us with this massive, final question to chew on. If Hume is right, if the very foundation of our reality is built on psychological habits instead of absolute truths, well, that forces us to ask a really tough question. Which of our habits are actually good for us, and which ones are holding us back? And how on earth can we even begin to tell the difference?